Nigeria is almost ticking all the boxes of a failed state. I think the only box on the failed state list that Nigeria hasn't ticked is that we still have one central government. And then we have government at the states and government at the local government. But if you want to push that a bit further, you might even say that we don't have a central government anymore. Why do I say that? Because as we speak today, there are territories on Nigerian soil that are ungovernable, even by government's own acceptance. And ungovernable means those areas are no-go areas. So there are bandits or terrorists that are running government in quote in those areas, and our security forces can't go there. So anytime our citizens are seized and taken into such enclaves, then it becomes a no-go area for our security. So you might even on that basis say that those guys are running a government within our government. So we are not doing well at all, given our natural endowment, given our population size, and given the fact that we are well placed to be punching our weight with the developed nations today. Because if you think about everything that a nation needs, Nigeria has it. One of the things that actually marvels me, or I actually see like is miraculous, is when I'm crossing the Mediterranean from Europe. So you're coming from Europe, you cross over the Mediterranean Sea, and you are over the African continent. And as I look down, 30 feet, 35 feet above, for example,
1,000 feet.
Yeah, 1,000 feet. All I see is scorched-patched earth. That's the Sahara Desert. There's no life, there's no plants, there's nothing. And you will continue to come on that desert for about 2 to 3 hours until when you now arrive at the northern shores of Nigeria. The whole vegetation now turns green, flush green, all the way to the Atlantic Ocean. And I thought, that's a marvel. It's actually miraculous because we could have been in that desert. So given all this that we have, I think we're not doing well. The indices are there. Security-wise, we are all living in fear. There are many places in Nigeria that even if you put $1 billion naira there and say I should go and take it, that I will not venture to go and take it. The economy itself is struggling. A lot of families can't feed their children. They cannot pick up their basic costs like transportation, the state of healthcare, the state of education. Then you look at other things like transportation. We're in a country where the basic mode of mass transportation, as we find in other nations, which is the railways, is missing. So like in this Abuja where we are, the federal capital city is connected to only one state capital in Nigeria, and that is Kaduna. The other 35 state capitals are not connected to the federal capital by rail. And to me, that's strange because rail is a catalyst for economic development. And then you look at other aspects like rule of law. Nations do well. Once you go to a nation and you see that things are happening positively in that nation, just check the level of rule of law. The enforcement is stringent. And I see that as missing in Nigeria. The law in Nigeria is not blind, it's got eyes. Then there are some people that, in fact, one day I arrived at the airport with a friend. We just arrived from London. And he was coming into Abuja for the first time in many years. And we just saw several vehicles on the road with plate number covered. So he asked me, why are these vehicles having plate numbers covered? I said, well, that is the absence of the rule of law in Nigeria. It means that those vehicles are above the law. Whatever they do on the road, nobody can trace them because the registration plate of a vehicle is the identity of that vehicle. That is what security aids where we use to trace the vehicle and then trace the owner subsequently. And you have situations like that in Nigeria. For someone just arriving, he found it very strange, but that is true. So this is the situation we are in. I don't think we are doing as well as we should be doing as a nation.
Thank you, Nick, for at least your opening remarks. Yeah. Many Nigerians believe their standard of living is worse off now than probably 5 to 10 years, before today, especially in terms of security and cost of living. Is Nigeria in decline, in your view? Is Nigeria in decline? Is our economy in decline?
Yes, absolutely. The economy is in decline. You see, the thing is that You look at our GDP, which is gross domestic product, that measures the level of output that we have in an economy. Because of the devaluation of the currency, the GDP itself measured in dollars previously was higher than what we have now, because the dollar is now about 1.4, maybe 1.5, touching that range. So whatever output you produce in Nigeria, if you divide it by a higher denominator, it kind of reduces the value of the equation. I mean, just for the sake of explaining what I'm saying, assuming that Nigeria produce only 1,500 naira worth of goods. Let's keep it very simple. 1,500 naira. Before the currency devaluation, the dollar was like 400 and something to the 400 something naira to the dollar, right? So if we produce 1,500 and you divide it by 500, you will get $3, right? Today, that same 1,500, you divide it by 1,500, which is now the exchange rate, you get only $1. So you can see the difference. So even if we increase our output to 3,000, if we still divide 3,000 by 1,500, you get $2, which is less than the $3 that it was before. So that is the kind of conundrum that we have found ourselves in. And if you ask Nigerians, a typical Nigerian, whether his life is better today than it was even 3-4 years ago or 5-10 years ago, the thing that you are going to come across is, if you ask any government official today, from the president down to the lowest government official, they will tell you that the reforms are delivering value to Nigerians. If you ask a Nigerian, we are now at the micro, because micro is now individuals and households. If you ask a Nigerian, how are you performing? He's most likely going to tell you that he's worse off. And he will also be right. Why is he worse off? By 2023, petrol was under 200. Today is nearly 1,000. So if he lived in Lugbe, maybe he used 500 naira to come to work in Abuja city and 500 naira to go by 1,000. Now he will have to probably pay 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 for the same trip, right? His income hasn't risen to that level. If you ask him about food prices, even as food prices are coming down, right, they are nowhere near where they were 3-4 years ago, right? If you ask him about the state of education, the state of healthcare, you ask him about security, his own personal security, whether he feels more secure now than before, all that this Nigerian is going to tell you will be on the negative side. And for me, that's where the lacuna is coming from. The government is doing well with macroeconomics, but it's not doing well with microeconomics. And until microeconomics is also taken on board, I don't think the macro is going to help the citizens that much. And the government can do certain things to bridge the gap, right? And one of the things I can give a few, maybe just 2 examples with the 2 cardinal reforms. The first one is the removal of fuel subsidy. What the government did was right, because the fuel subsidy became a criminal enterprise. People were using it to take money from the national treasury without delivering value to us. Of course, the president had 2 choices or more. The one choice that he had was to fight off the criminality and let subsidy itself continue, because subsidy is not a bad thing. I live in the UK, education is free, healthcare is free, you understand? There are subsidies because it's not as if those services are free. The government is picking up the tab as a way of subsidy. So subsidy itself is fine. So the president could have fought off the criminality, but he decided to throw away both the baby and the bathwater. Immediately he pronounced fuel subsidy is gone, the price of petrol shot up from under 200 where it was to about 400 and kept rising to 800, 900 today. The president needed to have taken immediate action to bring that down. The only way to bring down the price of petrol is to put more petrol in the market. And we have 4 refineries. They are the lowest hanging fruits to put more petrol in the market. The president hasn't done anything about them. So that is why the macro is doing well, the micro isn't doing well. Because we are left with Dangote refinery, who is a clear monopoly, not created by himself, but because he's the only one with that kind of capacity of a refinery in Nigeria. Dangote is competing with imports, and you expect imports to be high in price because you have to get 1,400, 1,500 to bring in a liter of petrol. President Tinubu needed to quickly ensure that these 4 refineries were also back into production. At least if today only one of them was back in production, they will be pushing products into the market, competing with Dangote refinery, and both of them, they will now use price to fight each other. And for us consumers, that is what we want.
Looking at Nigeria currently, where we are currently, the issues that bedevil this country, ethnic tensions, governance failures, and unity, and all of that. What do you consider to be our single biggest threat to Nigeria's unity or survival? What is the single biggest threat?
In Nigeria today, is the government. The government is our threat.
How do you mean?
Okay, fine. So the way God designed humanity is governed. The better the governance, the better the result. Yeah. And I give people an example for those who are Christians who understand the Bible. The people of Israel, when they had a good king, the nation was prosperous, the nation was well, the nation did well. When they had a bad king, the nation was not doing well. Now, the people of Israel, for those who are economics, there's something we call holding something constant. So hold the people of Israel constant. That don't change them. It's the same people of Israel in 2 scenarios. Vary only the king. You understand? By varying only the king, the result of the entire people of Israel changed. Put a good king, result was very good for everybody. Put a bad king, result was very bad for everybody. So you can see that it's about the government. It's the quality of the government that is going to determine the quality of the people, the quality of the nation. And I want to say that, do you know that Nigerians are united? Nigerians are united. I'm sitting here with you. I don't even know from where you come from, but based on your name, I imagine that you are from the southwest of Nigeria. I am from Benue State. I'm a thief man. But we're here producing this program to come across to Nigeria with information. There are no issue between us. We have Nigeria marrying across the ethnicities. We have Nigeria living in neighborhoods together. I went to Wuse Market the other day. I bought something from an Igbo man, and he didn't have his account immediately. He called his neighbor, an Hausa man, to give me his account number. I put the money in the Hausa man's account. So these are the level of all citizens. We have no issue with each other, right? The issue comes from when politicians now come into our midst. They now try to divide us, so that because the more they divide us, the better their own missions. For me, the worrying bit is that we Nigerians should call their bluff. But for some reason, we don't. We get sucked into the politicians' antics. And really, if a politician comes here now, they can begin to make me to look at you that, you are from the southwest, I'm from, this kind. That shouldn't happen. We Nigerians must stop that from happening. We must never allow these politicians to divide us, because our unity is strong at all counts.
Currently, we have a situation where 6 out of every 10 Nigerians is described, as living in extreme poverty. Whereas cost of governance is extremely high. So first question, what's his response for the cost of governance being so high while you have extreme poverty? 6 out of 10, if not 7 out of 10, classified as, living in extreme poverty. And then a rider is, this whole debacle, is it due to indifference? Is it state failure? Or is it just sheer corruption? Which is it?
Okay, so there are a couple of things.
Is it corruption, meaning is it a deliberate policy of state to pauperize the people? Which is it?
Okay, so it might not be deliberate, but do you know Aisha Buhari?
Yes, the former president's wife.
When they moved into the villa with the husband in 2015, she looked at how these people in government were behaving around her husband. She was inside. She was listening to them. She was there when they were. I don't know what she summed up to say. She said these people are hyenas and jackals.
They've hijacked my husband.
These are her words. These are hyenas and jackals. So we're dealing with a situation where people who are like animals are in charge. Do you understand? But let me say one thing. You talked about cost of governance. I think 2 things. Number one, the cost of governance in Nigeria is high relative to our budget, but it's not high given our population.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
How do I mean? Nigeria is well resourced, like we said earlier, but we are poor. You know how we are poor? You say 6 out of 10 are described as being in multidimensional poverty. I think that's a general statistics. Yeah. You know why? The minimum wage of Nigeria at $70,000. I mean, I wish it was dollars. At 70,000 naira per month. I live in the UK, so if I translate that into pounds, it's 35 pounds. 35 pounds. 35 pounds means in Nigeria, our minimum wage is earning about £1 something per day. His UK counterpart is earning £12 per hour. So even though cost of living in the UK is higher than here, but think about £1 per day and £12 per hour, and think about the Nigerian sometimes buying things close to what the UK is buying. I analyzed electricity cost very recently. The Nigeria electricity cost is near UK. So you are earning £1 a day. You are buying electricity almost at the same price with someone who is earning £12 an hour. My daughter, who is a primary school teacher, her transport to work is £1.75 on the bus to work, £1.75 to come back. Added together is £3.50, right? By Nigerian money, that is 7,000 naira. You understand? There are Nigerian workers that are paying either half of 7,000, which is 3,500, or 4,000. Some are paying 5,000, depending on where you are. But my daughter is earning £3,000, which by Nigerian's money is 6 million naira. So how can somebody earning 6 million naira is paying transport to commute to work less than or about a little bit more than somebody earning 70,000? Are you getting what I mean? So consider Nigerians who don't even have a job. Then consider Nigerians who are working in places. You see, in the informal sector does not understand minimum wage. This 70,000 we're talking, this is the formal sector.
Exactly.
So those Nigerians that are working in the mama food, working in shops and doing this kind of thing, are not even earning the 70,000.
Far less than the 70,000.
So if you put that out, those who don't have a job, those who are in the informal sector, and even those who are earning that 70,000, I think 6 over 10 is a general statistic. I think we should be looking at 9 over 10 of Nigerians are not doing well.
Absolutely. Another issue, Nick, we have a debt. I don't want to say crisis because they say, we still have...
We have a debt crisis.
They say we still have enough room to borrow. Yeah, okay, maybe by international standard.
Yeah.
But the point is that debt servicing is taking a huge chunk of our meager, or scarce resources.
Yes.
Whereas, even though we're, paying huge monies to service these debts, but then we don't see what the borrowed funds are being used for. So the question is, are we borrowing to develop, or are we borrowing to sustain, the appetite of the elite or the ruling class? Which is it?
We have a debt crisis.
Okay.
For me, I'm a public affairs analyst. I say it as it is. The way I see it, I don't want to color it or make it look, because it's the sugarcoating that makes us think that we're doing well. Yeah. When in reality, we're not doing well. For me, when I look at all the young people who are out of job, they woke up this morning, they are home, or they are just strolling around. They could get jobs, right? Like we're talking about railway. Yeah. If every government says, I'm going to connect the federal capital to one state capital per year, since we have been 26 years in this thing, this would have been 26 state capitals connected. Not only will it ease transportation, it will create jobs for our young people. They will be riding the train, the engineers are doing the train, those who are looking after the tracks, the customer service, ticket sellers, even those sweeping the train station, the train station, those washing the train, then accountants, lawyers. That's how you create jobs sustainably, right? So for me, the issue is that we have a debt crisis. You know how we have a debt crisis? This budget that we're talking about, the budget that the president delivered at the National Assembly recently, we are said to earn 33 trillion. So it's 33 trillion revenue, so 25 trillion debt. So it's 33 trillion revenue, 25 trillion debt. Yes. That is what gives us the 58 trillion budget. Right. Now, think about a government that says I'll make 33 trillion. First and foremost, you know they will not make that 33 trillion. They will not make that 33 trillion because they said they will be selling crude oil, 1.8 million barrels of crude oil at $65 per barrel. As we speak today, we are not doing the 1.8, right? We are not doing the one. We are still doing 1.4. There's a shortfall. And oil is dancing between 60, 62, 63, like that. You understand? So, but even if we keep it at that 33, debt service is 15 trillion. So that means we plan to pay half of what we are earning as debt. If a father is earning 70,000.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
We plan to use 15 trillion of what we're going to earn.
Yeah, to pay the debt.
Meanwhile, we're still going to borrow 17 trillion.
Yeah, we're probably 25 trillion because it is 33 trillion plus 25 that makes the 58, right? So a father that earns 70,000,
yes,
immediately earns it, 35,000 goes to paying debt. He's only heading home with 35,000. There is nothing that anybody will tell me that I will not say this family is in a financial crisis. Do you understand? So if you look at the budget numbers, 33 trillion is the revenue. 15 trillion is debt service. 15 trillion is a recurrent expenditure, right? So if you add debt service and recurrent expenditure, the government revenue has gone. So the budget we have today, I challenge anybody to go and look at the numbers again. We have to borrow to finish up the recurrent expenditure. So capital expenditure is 100% borrowing. Do you understand? So we're in a financial crisis. There's no two way about it. Let's be honest with ourselves, because like you said, we're in a debt spiral.
Yeah. Corruption is, I don't want to say social menace because it's deeper than that. It's a cancer that has eaten away at this country's efforts to develop, to make progress, to lift people out of poverty and all of that. I mean, you pretty much said that in your last submission. So everybody talks about corruption, every government comes and talks about corruption, but it is rarely confronted decisively. Now, this government has, continuing in that path. How do you assess the President Tinubu's administration in terms of anti-corruption stance? How do you assess them? Is it performative or is it real?
I don't think they are fighting corruption.
Or is it a tool against opponents and all of that?
Yeah, my candid opinion is I don't think this government is fighting corruption because I'm not seeing them fight corruption. In the Buhari government, there are a lot of the Buhari appointees that are in different stages in the courts over corrupt practices. We have the former Attorney General, we have the former Minister for Aviation, we have the former Minister for Labour in Gige, we have the former Central Bank Governor. All these people are in the courts, plus many more on corrupt practices. I think that this government is creating far bigger Ngiges and Malamis and the Mayfellas than Sidi Sarikas, or what's his name, the aviation man. Than this government is creating far bigger ones than the Buhari regime. And the evidence
Why do you say that?
Okay, so the evidence is empirical, right? Like this year, we budgeted 58 trillion. The question is that what are we seeing on the ground that would suggest that this economy actually got 58 trillion spent? That's the thing. And then you have snippets of corrupt tendencies here and there. Of course, the government removed the minister because of corruption and all. But if you go to the Federal Secretariat, which is on this same road now, heading into town, in every office, and this is something that I have facts with, in every office in that Federal Secretariat, government officials are looking for ways to take money out of the system. In all of the ministries, in all of the departments, in all of the agencies.
You have evidence?
I have evidence. I can provide evidence for people. I can provide the evidence. And you know what? Why I will provide the evidence? The evidence will be government will need to bring the bank. If let's say someone takes me to court now, I will ask the government to produce the bank account statements of every single ministry, department, and agency. And we're going to look inside to see where the money is going. And let us see that the money is going where the money should have gone. It's very easy to prove it. You see what I mean? But do you know what the issue is? This corruption is a symptom. It's not a cause.
Okay.
It's a symptom. So sometimes we spend a lot of time fighting symptoms in Nigeria instead of looking at the causes.
What's the cause?
So the cause is lack of rule of law. The rule of law, the absence of the rule of law, or the ineffectiveness of the rule of law is the cause. And if I have 2 minutes, I can tell you something. I gave a lecture at a Christian university in Nigeria. Because a Christian university, I use the Bible as my starting point. I told them that God set a template to govern humanity in the Garden of Eden. And every nation that is following that template, even if they are not religious, they do well. And any nation that doesn't follow that template doesn't do well, even if they are religious, like Nigeria. So what's the template? The template is in fact this manual, operating manual. You see this camera that we have here? It has an operating manual. The technicians are following that manual. That's why the camera is giving us result. God's manual to run humanity is in 5 chapters. Chapter 1 is the creation of humanity, which in Nigeria we have no problem. We're 200 million people. So on that one, we're doing well. Number 2 is the law. Once God created humanity, he gave humanity the law. And the law was, you can do this or you cannot do this. You know? So one law was permissive, the other law was restrictive. We don't have a problem with laws in Nigeria. We have the constitution, we have so many laws. No issue, first class. Number 3, there was human action in that garden. And the human action was that man was doing well, obviously. But on one particular day, he didn't do well by breaking the law. In Nigeria, there's human action. So there are many Nigerians doing well on a day-to-day basis, but then there are those who are not doing well, breaking the law. So again, that is fine. Problem is starting with chapter 4. Chapter 4 is when God created the judiciary in that Garden of Eden. God engaged in a trial. God set up a court. God said, when man doesn't do it right, don't visit him with jungle justice. Don't give him a punishment without giving him fair hearing. So God created a court. He gave man a fair hearing. Man explained himself. And God found out that man was at fault. There was sentencing as part of the judicial action in that garden. Then number 5, chapter 5, is when God now came back and executed the sentencing that was passed in chapter 4, right? Is Nigeria doing well with 1, 2, 3? Yes. Is Nigeria doing well with 4 and 5? No. For so long as Nigeria, because for you to do well, for you to get the best out of humanity, you must do well in all the 5 chapters. All the 5 chapters you must pass. Not even one you will leave behind. Nigeria is not doing well in the judiciary. We know how our judiciary is running. Our judiciary is not giving fair hearing, it's not giving fair sentencing. That is clear. The cases are there. It's not me saying it. Judges are under scrutiny. Some are in trial and all that. Number 5 is execution of the law. That is where the executive arm of government comes in. So God created the people arm of government in chapter 1, which is creation of man. God created the legislative arm of government, which is chapter 2, when God made law. And then there was human action. Then God created the judicial arm of government in chapter 4. God created the executive arm of government in chapter 5. That is, their job is to execute the laws that have been placed on the ground. If any of this arm of government is not working, the nation will not do well. And I gave examples. I said, of the top 10 most developed nations in the world, led by Switzerland, right? 7 of them are in the top 10 of the most irreligious nations in the world. I see what I'm saying? They don't go to church, they don't go to mosque at all, but they are top 10. 7 of them are top 10. The only 3 that are not part of the top 10 is the United States, the United Kingdom, and Japan. The other 7 don't go to church at all. They don't go to mosque. Why are they so developed? They are following this 5-chapter book that God has made. Until Nigeria follows this 5-chapter book, it's not going to happen. You know the other thing? The first arm of government that God created, which is chapter 1, the people arm of government. If you go to other nations, if the other arms of government, which is the legislature, the judiciary, and the executive are not behaving well. It is the people arm of government that acts as the corrective force. And that takes us back to that middle class discussion that we're having. That's the missing link.
Brilliant.